What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's going on with the economic calendar moving forward, some very important factors about the markets, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you guarantee 20 free stocks. An offer ends very soon and just about 2 days from now. Anyways, for the market, I just wanted to mention that we have a very, very nice looking structure on SPY, as we've seen a lot of buyers stepping in trying to defend it. And overall, we got a decent report from PCE that's causing the market to hold up. The market pumped very nicely as soon as the data came out. It is starting to dip a little bit right now, but overall, I want to break down what these numbers look like. So when it comes to the way the data came out, everything was aligned with expectations. We had core PCE at 0.1%, which is not bad. The only thing that was above expectations was actually personal income. That was above expectations. Everything else was as expected. If you look at PCE month over month for all items, it was at 0%, aligned with expectations. And then PCE for all items, and then core PCE for all items. Core PCE with that's all items without food and energy. Everything was at 2.6%, so basically aligned with expectations. So that's what happened year over year. Everything was aligned with expectations. The market once again got a more positive reaction to this, pushing all the way up towards not too far from all-time highs before coming back down a bit. We have Daly giving a speech at 8:40 a.m. And then at 9:45 a.m., we have the Chicago PMI report coming out, followed by the 10 o'clock a.m. Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, which will cause even more volatility. So I can't wait to see what all this data causes, at least for the markets, but look for more volatility at 9:45, also 10 o'clock a.m. For some news about the market pushed a little bit higher yesterday before starting to, pump even more after this data came out. It is dipping a bit since then, but overall, still not a bad move. We had the big inflationary numbers we were looking for, and overall, this was not bad. This was more positive, at least for the Fed's policies. Now the Fed's in a position where they're less incentivized to be more hawkish, and this gives them a better stance in terms of keeping rates the same, if not cutting them before the year ends. So that's going to be a very important note. The summer is in full swing, but home prices might finally start to cool down. That's something else that's worth noting. That's because of the fact that price gains are shrinking and home sellers are starting to give a bit on pricing. Some reports are showing that. And finally, we had Walgreens. Basically, the shares are down 22% after the company reported its earnings that fell short of expectations, and they slashed their full year guidance adjusted for the profit outlook. So, not the best of news, at least for them. For the markets, what do I see moving forward? SPY has this gap to fill down here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see a little dip over here. Keep in mind we have a lot of option expirations, so it might not make a crazy amount of volatility. I think that we could dip a bit as we've come to fill this gap. And then we'll be watching the 547 area. If we lose 547, then we could be dipping to 545.8. But if we hold this, we could just push back up and just continue to shuffle in this range between 547 and 548.5. And if we break that, I'll be looking for a push once again to this imbalance all the way up towards 550. So I think that there is potential for SPY to push all the way up towards 550 again. But we might get an initial dip. It might dip first before we try to push higher later on. But overall, the chart is still remaining more bullish. So it still has more upside potential, but we might get an initial dip before we try to bounce higher. As long as we try to hold and close above 547, I'll be looking for that. So in my opinion, this might dip a little bit, then try to rebound. As long as we hold 547, we will continue to push. If we lose 547, we could actually dip a little bit lower before we try to get that bounce, but the chart is still on a bit of an uptrend. Just like here, when we hit this low at 542, we've made higher highs and higher lows. And since then, we are trying to continue to go higher. So it is looking like we have more upside potential. SPY is still in a very, very critical place, and there are a lot of buyers defending the markets, at least for now. As far as Tesla goes, I'm seeing something very similar. We're kind of shuffling at 200. If we lose 200, I'll be looking for 196.5 as key support, and we have resistance at 202. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually dip a little bit to like the 198 and then come back up and just kind of shuffle between 196.5 and 200. And if we break 200, I'll be looking for 202. I think Tesla might just range trade within this range right here. Overall, the structure on Tesla is looking pretty good because we have a very nice looking inverse head and shoulders like structure that's actually playing out very nicely. So not bad for Tesla. It has more upside potential later. May dip a little bit and then just continue to shuffle between 196, and then 200, and before it tries to kind of break out to go to higher levels. I'll be watching for that. For Nvidia is kind of shuffling right now between 122 and 126, kind of going back and forth and back and forth. If we break past 126, we'll be looking for a much bigger push. Otherwise, we're still kind of range bound. Nvidia's looking pretty decent right now, not looking too bad. I think there's a good chance we kind of shuffle a bit, maybe try to push a little higher. If we could try to break past 125.31, if that breaks, I'll be looking for a bigger push. Otherwise, we're kind of choppy, but we are attempting to push just a little bit. Same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is trying to hold up. It's still just chopping around this 61,225 area. If we break it, I'll be looking at 62,500. If you reject it, we'll be dipping back down to 60,700. Kind of shuffling right now on Bitcoin, but there is potential for us to go a little higher, so I'll have to give that a little bit more time. For the QQQ, this is pushed quite a bit, only to kind of reject a bit. We went all the way to about 485. Now we're retracing just a little bit. If we fail to hold above 482.5, we'll be looking for a dip towards 480. And we'll see if we bounce off 480, or not. If we lose 480, we'll be dipping back down to 478. If we hold 480, we could try to bounce. So watch for a little retracement on the QQQ and see if we can try to hold 480. We'll watch and see if there's a bounce that's coming. I do think it might dip a little bit more. Apple's also kind of flat, but we have more upside potential, at least developing on Aapl. If you look at this, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure that suggests more upside as a possibility. We could dip a little bit towards the 215 area, then we try to bounce later on. We have a nice imbalance to fill, so there is upside potential there. So we'll just have to give this more time just to see how things end up moving. But as we continue to dip, we might try to retest 215 and try to push higher as we have this imbalance up here at 218. So we'll see how things go from there. I think that overall Apple's holding up well. For Super Micro, we have a nice looking double bottom like structure as we're trying to push higher. It is possible we dip a little bit lower all the way down towards 880 before we try to bounce and continue higher. But if we do end up projecting here, we'll be looking for 866 if 880 fails us. So I think we might dip to about 880 before we try to bounce again. The structure is still bullish, but I just want to note to be a little bit careful. For AMD could be dipping right down towards 159. If we lose this, we'll be dipping all the way down towards 158. And if we hold this, we could try to rebound towards 162. Overall, we're holding up really well on AMD, so we'll have to give this a little bit more time. For Coinbase, we're trying to form a double bottom, trying to push higher. We could retest 229 and maybe reject off that or not. But like I said before, it could go a little higher before we try. Not looking bad whatsoever as it's trying to hold up. Amazon pushed all the way up to 200 only to kind of reject a bit. We could be looking for 197 and then 196.5 before it tries to bounce higher again. But look for a little dip on Amazon. For Meta, we're also dipping a bit. We could be looking for a retest of about 515 and eventually 511. So I look for a little dip on Meta before it tries to bounce. For Microsoft, we could be dipping towards 450. We'll see if we bounce off that or not, but there could be a little one coming. Google also could dip all the way down towards 184. We could dip there before we try to bounce. So look for a little retracement on there as well. With that being said, guys, that's it for the market. We pumped very, very nicely thanks to PC, but now the market's dipping a little bit. We could dip a bit, so make sure you watch 547 on SPY to see how well we hold and see if we get a bounce or not. We did get the push we were talking about. It's about 549 only to come back down. So watch to see if 547 holds, and we'll see what the reaction is from there, at least moving forward. With that being said, thank you for listening, guys. I'll see you guys very soon after the market opens. Get ready for more volatility once we get all this data that's coming out from the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report and the other pieces of data at 10 o'clock a.m. So we'll see how things go. And with that being said, thank you all for listening. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you guys in just a few hours. Thank you and peace out.